G'day guys and gal. Firstly, I wanted to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I'll speak more about the year as a whole and future plans later, but I wanted to start this video off with high vibes. Secondly, saying the enemy of my enemy is my friend does not apply to Warhammer 40k. If the Tyranids and Chaos attack each other, they are both most certainly still your enemy, and you should attempt to inflict genocide upon them with extreme prejudice. With the opening of the Great Rift, the Tyranids have started taking countermeasures to Chaos, but that does beg the question, could the Nids actually beat and even consume Chaos? Could the Hive mind eat the Chaos gods? Could the Nids invade the Eye of Terror and devour all the worlds within it? Before we get started, last video of the year, I wanted to take this time to announce something. The $21.5 thousand Major Mini painting competition is getting pushed back to March. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that is half the reason why I'm pushing it back. See, my company Major Minis, where I sell a bunch of, in my biased opinion, incredibly fucking sick miniatures worldwide, I thought it'd be awesome to host the highest ever prize pool for a miniature painting competition ever. And with nearly 100,000 Major Minis out there in the wild, there would be no shortage of potentially awesome paint jobs. However, between the Big E launch, Black Friday and my other brands, I had no time to promote the competition itself. So while we have had dozens of entries, I wanted to give the competition the spotlight it deserved. Basically, there are numerous categories, ranging from best painted to the most creative to the best kit bash to even a Big E exclusive category. So you don't have to be the best painter to take home thousands of dollars. You can enter in any mini bought from Major Minis, even discontinued minis. You can also submit minis you had commission painted. I mean, fuck, you can even submit minis you may have gotten from the Major Mini pre-painted service, especially those ultra tiers. I just want to encourage as many people to enter as possible. Even Stephanie gave it a whirl and submitted not only the worst photo, but also the worst painted biggie I've ever seen in my life, and I respect the shit out of that. Remember, if you're trying to submit a paint job, try to shoot the photo nicely. These are some current entries that were shot poorly, here are some examples of ones that were shot okay, and here are some examples of ones that were shot great. A good photo may be the difference between winning and losing. This is currently the front runner best entry so far, so if you think you or a mate could outdo it, then you should give it a go, and even if you can't, you should try anyway. Link to the competition is below. New end date is 31st of March, so there's plenty of time to pick up a Major Mini and start if you don't already have one. Today we'll go over if the Tyranids can actually consume Chaos and how they may go about it. Let's get into it. The Tyranids are vicious and highly intelligent, however they are also predators and will follow the natural laws of an apex predator. That being, its main food source is prey, such as the Imperium or the Tau, and it will generally avoid other apex predators, such as Chaos or the Necrons. However, if it needs to claim new territory or outcompete another apex for more prey, it will do so. That is why there are numerous records of Tyranids fighting Necrons, despite Necrons being inedible and having a shitload of anti-Tyranid weaponry. I mean, pretty much everything about the Necrons is a hard counter to the Tyranids. It is also pretty similar for Chaos. Their worlds are rarely verdant, and Tyranids cannot consume Chaos if it's too corrupted. There was a Tyranid fleet that once consumed a plague world and it got AIDS and died. Demons also do not have biomatter, so when Tyranids and demons fight, the Tyranids cannot replenish their numbers against the demons very well, instead forced to cannibalize their dead warriors as opposed to eating the enemy, which isn't a great way for the Tyranids to replenish. So naturally the Tyranids kept their encounters with the Necrons and Chaos to a minimum. Chaos was fine with this, and the Necrons aren't often too bothered if you stay the fuck off their lawns. This definitely put a lot of pressure on the Imperium, who were the go-to target for literally everyone. But then something happened. Abaddon got horny, blew up Cadia, and the galaxy was torn in half by the Great Rift. The psychic shockwave was so powerful that it knocked out both the Emperor and the Hive mind. When the Hive mind woke up, it was like, wait a fucking minute, and now saw Chaos as one of, if not the greatest threat to its existence in the Milky Way. If Chaos was to corrupt the Imperium and take over, putting even more warp energy into the galaxy, the Tyranids would have a terrible time. Most biomatter would become unclean and hard to eat, and most worlds would become hyper-hostile, with Nurgle ones being entirely inedible. It would just suck a lot of balls. So the Tyranids created Hive Fleet Kronos, a specialized anti-Chaos Hive Fleet, specializing in range attacks as Chaos loves melee, as well as a much stronger shadow in the warp effect, which is like a warp dampener that weakens psychers and demons. This Hive Fleet has been exclusively targeting Chaos, even to a point where another Hive Fleet will attack a Chaos world, scour it of life, pre-digest it, and then leave it as a gooey biomatter soup for Kronos to swoop in, devour, then move on. Basically the Tyranids' way of allowing Kronos to replenish as fast as possible with no casualties, so it can focus its strength on Chaos strongholds. There was even a time when an Imperial fleet was losing to a Chaos fleet, but then Kronos appeared, ignored the Imperials, and attacked the Chaos fleet, allowing the Imperials to escape. So that is what the Tyranids are currently doing to mitigate Chaos. They have an anti-Chaos Hive fleet which will target key strategic Chaos threats, mostly screening work to allow their other fleets to eat the Imperial prey, especially those isolated worlds on Imperium Nihilus. But could this be scaled up? Let's create a hypothetical. Another Tyranid Hive fleet arrives. Hive fleet Ligma, more powerful than the rest, the ultimate Tyranid force. Using Ligma, they they sweep through the galaxy and finally manage to consume Terra, mostly knocking the Imperium out of the setting as a threat. The Tau would be trying to protect their empire, the Necrons would rally in the Pariah Nexus, which would be like a dead zone for the Nids that they cannot enter as it doesn't have a Wi-Fi signal, so the Nids would then want to go on to eat the now scattered Imperial worlds that are vulnerable. However, Chaos is stronger than ever and in the Tyranids' way, so they put their focus on Chaos. If we wanted to make this situation more lore-friendly, we could just say that Leviathan gets so strong that it's able to take out Terra on its own. Now, the Nids are very adaptable. They would be able to convert pretty much all their Hive fleets into Kronos-level anti-Chaos fleets. Likewise, Nurgle is a pain in the ass and hard to eat, but I honestly think the Nids could adapt to it. They would just need to create some kind of warp filter as they consume things to capture and dispose of Nurglite diseases during digestion, so the Nurglite matter becomes edible. Now, one thing the Nids struggle with a lot is fighting more than one type of enemy at a time. See, they can't just adapt to everything. Every time a Tyranid adds another type of armor or resistance or weapon or organ, it costs more biomatter and takes longer to create. That is why you don't just see Hive Tyrants or Norn emissaries running around everywhere. So what usually happens is the Nids will enter a war zone, see that they are fighting guardsmen, so then they adapt their armor to become more lasgun resistant. However, in a war zone with Space Marines, guardsmen and Tau, or even Orcs, the Nids struggle to adapt and they are often crushed as the very tactics and weapon types of each faction are so different. Since Chaos is like 4 factions in one, the Nids would struggle to properly adapt to them, as what works against a Core Knight army will not work against a Tzeentchian army and so on. So that is definitely an advantage Chaos would hold. The galaxy would also be flooded with a shitload of warp energy from the death of the Emperor as well as the Great Rift, so the Shadow and the Warp won't just be an insta-win for the Nids. However, we do also need to consider 2 things. Firstly, the Nids probably would have eaten a Primarch if they managed to take out Terra, and they probably would have also eaten the Emperor, not to mention all the Custodians. So there would be some spicy DNA getting turned into some very spicy Tyranid forms, likely Commander forms that make the Swarm Lord look like a disabled kid getting hit by a landslide. Let's just roll with that metaphor. The following war between the Nids and Chaos would be obscene. Demons constantly being banished and reforming, Nids constantly being killed and then consumed and redeployed. The Eldar, Necrons, Tau and Orcs wouldn't know which side to try fight, as a victory of either would be shit for everyone, so probably just hide and fortify their worlds, except for the Orcs of course, who would get stuck into 3-way battles on the regular. I do believe the Tyranids would push Chaos back towards the Great Rift. However, the closer they get to the Rift, the faster Chaos reinforcements can arrive, the weaker the Shadow and the Warp would be, and the stronger Chaos would be. Likewise, Warp Spaghetti Sorcery has a lot of bullshit hacks, and I genuinely think we would start seeing Chaos mutated or even corrupted Tyranids starting to appear. Even with all their anti-corruption properties, there is just no way the Nids could be continually blasted with Chaos energy while also eating Chaos biomatter and it having zero effect. Now, the Tyranids would likely be able to push Chaos all the way into the Great Rift and Eye of Terror, but then they would need to go in, eat everything, eat all the worlds, then get into the Warp and then eat the realms of Chaos, which yeah, they just can't really do that right now, I'm sorry. There would need to be some kind of big plot development or twist to allow that to be viable. Entering the Great Rift or the Eye of Terror would fuck the Nids up. After all, there was a Tyranid fleet that threw through the Ghoul Stars to try to take a shortcut, and it ended up wigging out, becoming twisted and then leaving. And sure, the Ghoul Stars are spooky, but they're nothing compared to being in the actual Rift or the Eye. No, a direct invasion just wouldn't work. The Tyranids' best bet would be this. After taking out Terra, use numerous Kronos-like Hive fleets to contain Chaos as much as possible and keep it tied down. Then use Leviathan and the other Hive fleets to clean up the isolated Imperial worlds, consume the Craft worlds, consume the Tau and even the Orcs. Basically aim to build up a shitload of biomass, empower the Hive mind, and kill as many sentient things in the galaxy as physically possible, which would then starve the Chaos gods. Then they should launch invasions into the Rift and Eye to massacre the Chaos worlds full of cultists, even if those incursions ended in a total loss of biomass for those ships. Basically just try empty the galaxy as much as possible to the point where the Chaos gods are massively weakened. This will create a snowball effect as less and less demons are able to manifest, and then more and more Tyranid Hive fleets surround the Great Rift and start combining their Shadow and the Warp into this massive fuck you Chaos aura, which I believe would actually start shrinking the Rift. The snowball would continue, less demons, more Nids, smaller Rift, weaker Chaos gods, until Chaos was so contained that the Tyranids no longer saw them as a threat, or the Hive mind is so juiced up that it could attempt to eat the Chaos gods. Now the Chaos gods are concepts of emotion and spirit, which might seem like fundamental laws of the galaxy, but if the galaxy is now devoid of emotion because the Tyranids ate everyone, then the Chaos gods concepts become completely irrelevant. No more scheming, no more diseases, no more lust, no more rage. So could the Tyranids consume Chaos using what they currently have in the setting available to them? The answer is yes, but basically everything would have to go their way and the Imperium would need to be wiped out first. But in terms of actually beating Chaos, only the Nids and Necrons currently have a viable strategy. However, both those strategies end up killing almost every living thing in the galaxy. The enemy of my enemy is also my enemy. Now, as fun as a Nid total victory would be, it would be a terrible business decision for GW, so you can rest assured that the Nids will not be eating Chaos anytime soon. However, their recent focus shift towards combating Chaos has been a bit of fun in the lore, and I'll continue to keep an eye on it with great interest. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a major Mini. The painting competition is live till March. Could be an awesome opportunity to show your skills and take home some cash. Hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button for more consumable content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.